Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here again. Episode 2 for this Friday. We're going to wrap this up and enjoy the weekend. I'll be doing double duty on Monday. We have closings in the Robert Tellis trial, and then Corey Rich's preliminary hearing starts on Monday as well. Hoping to have 2 live streams going, one of each, and I will likely do an update on both episodes that day. So we will get some rest this weekend and ready to hit the ground running on Monday morning. We're going to jump in. You know the drill. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, and you can ring my bell if you want notifications of when I post new content. Just click that little bell icon. Music fact of the day. George Strait is the only artist to have a top 10 hit every year for over 30 years. So we start off with Detective MOG being recalled by the state. He was called out of order on September 7th. He was at Robert's house preparing to execute that search warrant. He had crime scene take that photo of Robert's wife's Apple Watch during his interview. He said in talking to her, he learned information that was relevant to the investigation. I'm assuming that would be that text message where she asked, "Where are you?" On cross, Mogg did not go through the download of Robert's phone. He did hear a text was deleted. The state gets back up and talks about the extraction being more in depth as far as what was on Robert's phone. They talk about these columns that show when a message is deleted. And for example, Robert had a deleted message in April. Beside that, there is either a red check or the word yes that would indicate that particular message was deleted. That was not seen on that message, "Where are you?" But that doesn't mean it wasn't deleted off the phone. After Detective Mogg was briefly on the stand, Robert gets back up and tells the jury he wants to go over some things that were brought up on cross exam yesterday. First, he asked, "Why was Zach mad at me?" It's a little hard to follow him. He talks very fast. He doesn't really explain it to all of us like we're 3, as far as those of us who are not familiar with this line of work and what it entails, but I'm going to give it a go. He explains before he was elected, they had one realtor. Robert opened it up to a number of realtors. The guy before him gave the homes to one person, and that one person could not handle the volume of homes that he had to work with. He said these homes would sit for months. They were in danger of foreclosure. If they still had mortgages and they weren't turning these homes over quickly enough, the mortgage would take a chunk of the equity, and Robert wanted to turn them over faster so that the families would get more money. He says Clark County has a policy to support small businesses, and he did this by opening it up to more than one realtor. He said he did not like having just one. He said it's important that the vendors have access to capital for the renovations that were needed on these homes. He said when you sell a home that's in disrepair, you sell for less. Flippers get that house and then sell it for more. And Robert wanted to put that in the family's hands, that extra profit. But if you wanted to do business with the PA's office, you had to have the renovation money on hand and make that home move in ready when you were finished. Zach Schilling, the realtor that testified last week, he was the listing agent on one of their vendors' teams. He said Zach decides that he's going to move from the broker he was working with without telling his supervisor he's going to do that. Zach did not have access to capital, and he would minimize the renovations that were needed. He didn't get as many homes as he was getting before, and according to Robert, that's what upset Zach. He says allegedly about 50 times during this portion of his testimony, and this was regarding electronic evidence allegedly found on my phone. He said when he was arrested, the police leak, "There is allegedly a shoe in my house." Allegedly, DNA was found. He moves on to the Google Map images found on his phone showing Mr. Gearman's residence. He says, "I don't know Mr. Gearman's address, so whoever did it knew it." They brought up that apparently Robert was doing surveillance. He was filming cars. We saw a photo of a lot of those cars yesterday. He said, but if I did and I knew there was a camera across the way, I wouldn't do it. Also, I would find another car different than mine. He said, I'm not rich, but I could have rented a car. I didn't know Jeff's schedule to know that he would be home on that day at that time. Apparently, the killer did. I didn't know the layout of his home or what room he would be in, and I wouldn't know how to lure him out of his house. I didn't commit the murder. I don't know how the murderer knew all that. He said, I did not buy a straw hat, a construction shirt. He says his finances were investigated, and if he had of, you would have seen that. He talks about the search warrant on his house. He said, I was detained at the station. I wasn't handcuffed during the interrogation. So it would seem the officers, including Detective Jappy, did not fear I was a danger to them. He says his wife and kids were sequestered in a room during that search warrant and points out there was no body cam video as the search warrant was being executed. He says, I've seen numerous cases where body cam was used in searches, but not in my house. He moves on to Detective Jappy's investigation. He said that Compass had over 500 cells over the years, and he was investigating me for 5 months for alleged bribery. He had 100 gigs on me and only 3 gigs for Compass. He then says, I have to speak to the relationship with Roberta. During COVID, we spent a lot of time together. We grew too close and we had choices and made a big mistake. He says if Jeff had not been killed, you would not be hearing that the relationship happened. The county omitted anything personal in nature in the documents that were given to Jeff, and that's not a motive for murder. He wouldn't have had more material for a more damaging article than what he already had done. He says Roberta is a good person who loves her family just like me. It was a mistake, but it doesn't mean I killed Jeff. He says he would never engage in any criminal conduct. I respect the law, and I was trying to uphold the law in my position, and I wouldn't commit murder because I have respect for human life. Nobody should have their lives cut short at the hands of another. When it comes to Compass, I was not a lame duck. Watch the video from the August hearing. I wasn't acting like a lame duck. I kept fighting, and you'll see the serious concerns I raised. Even the judge was concerned. I just got the authority to do what Detective Jappy did not. The public should demand the FBI investigate Compass. He names an employee from Compass who donated to the district attorney in March of 2022. He says, if you recall, that's the time I was introduced to Detective Jappy by the DA. When Detective Jappy said he likely found theft, I found out the DA knew that as well. He asked to have a campaign report from the DA to be published for the jury. He reads from that and says someone gave $5,000 to the DA's campaign. Then he says, I'm not crazy. How Compass could move so much money in this day and age in our city is incredible to me. He says, I'm innocent. I'm not the kind of person who could brutally murder the man and do it with experience and training. Go to the gym, pick up my kids. I can't imagine being that kind of person. I am innocent. On recross, you know they're going to get up and give it to him again. The state says, you're not friends with Jeff. He didn't share what information he collected. And you know, journalists have sources. They collect information from multiple places. All you know is he had made one records request to your office, and you don't know what he gathered in August of 2022. You don't know he wouldn't have had enough to write another article. Robert says, I don't think he did. I just want to point out here too that Robert's employer, the Review Journal, took the fight to the Supreme Court to protect Jeff's sources in all of this. And I think that's so important. The state moves on. You told Nicole, I have fear these articles will jeopardize my future employment, even as an attorney in the city. And Robert said, it crossed my mind. The state said, "Well, you memorialized that in a text to Nicole." He says, yes. But you're writing Nicole a couple of hours later saying the exact opposite of what you're saying here. 4 days later, there's 130 images mapping out Jeff's neighborhood. And on the 15th, There is the amateurish surveillance taking place. Robert says, I didn't do that. There are photos from your desk and your work computer with all of Jeff's identifying information. Robert says, I didn't do it. That same month, your expert witness saw that you turned off your location data. Isn't there a slide from August 1st to the end of August showing no location data? Robert says he will get to that, and the state says, you're going to get to that right now. Do you remember your expert saying that there was no location data for the month of August? There is a lot of talking over each other. The judge steps in and tells them to stop talking over each other, but Robert says yes. They talk about the man that donated to the district attorney in January through March. This is 2 months before Jeff's article, is when he donated. Robert says he found out that this person has people who donates year after year, and he calls it a prescription for a get out of jail free card. The state asks, is the DA in on the conspiracy for Jeff's murder? Robert says, I don't know. But I do know he turned a blind eye to crime. The state says, can you rule the DA out? Robert says, can you rule it out? The state says you can't rule out Compass, you can't rule out Rita, Detective Jappy, the police, the DNA experts. Robert says, I can't say who all may have been involved in the conspiracy. The state asks, so you're the victim in this? And Robert says yes. Robert says there's no location information on the phones because I didn't take them. I'm not surprised they have no location data. How that shows I'm guilty? He said, it still makes no sense to me. He says, Mr. Wilson, the DA, I researched him. And when Paris Hilton got charges here, there's an objection that's sustained. But I'm going to tell y'all right now, I did not have Robert name dropping Paris Hilton while he was on the stand on my bingo card. But here we are. Robert says that I'm sure someone will be doing homework on that. The judge speaks up and wants that stricken from the record. And then Robert says he has nothing further for himself. There was a jury question, a couple actually. Did your wife find out about the affair before or after Jeff's article? He says before. He stumbles and then he says it is what it is. Another jury question. How tall are you without shoe lifts? He says he is 5'6.5". The next witness was the state's phone expert. They asked, does the extraction software capture every single time someone deletes data off their phone? No. It goes back to the inner workings of how cell phones store data. If it's marked for deletion, everything is still in a database. When you delete it, you may not see it on your phone, but it's still there until it's actually deleted. Sometimes it can be recovered. And then this conversation gets really techie. So we'll just say that sometimes deleted messages can be recovered, and sometimes they can't. They move on to the recipes. You were asked to see if there was evidence of recipes being Googled on his phone. Remember, he said he cut his finger making chicken fried rice for his daughter? There was a web history for air fryer French fries on September 1st. They go through some other recipes that were Googled way back before the murder. There was some fried rice results, but it was just text messages where clearly people are giving their order for takeout. On cross, they go through all of the electronics seized in this case and asked if the results he is testifying to were only from Robert's phone. Yes. The witness says he did not search the other electronics for any kind of recipe. The next witness is lead detective Gaddis. She talks about the three cars Robert had: a red Yukon, a brown BMW SUV, and then a black Tesla. She tried to figure out the time that it would take from Robert's neighborhood to get to Planet Fitness. It would be about 4 to 6 minutes, depending on red lights. At the time the Denali arrives back towards Robert's neighborhood, she watched a video from an elementary school. And then 10 minutes later, she sees what she believes to be Robert's BMW go towards Planet Fitness at 12:03. We know he clocked in at 12:09. They show a very brief video of that. And then on cross, the defense points out that where she saw Robert, it's not necessarily the entrance to Robert's neighborhood. It's a few streets back. And the witness says, yes, it's a very short distance. They ask if she's aware the neighborhood has other entrances, and she says one that she knows of. After lunch, we had the phone expert back on the stand. The defense asked about the data extracted from the Dell computer. The defense points out this was logged into with Robert's personal Gmail account, the same one he had logged in on his Android phone. The defense says, is it fair to say anybody in or out of the PA's office with access to this computer could have access to the same Google account that's synced onto Robert's phone? The witness says he doesn't have a report saying that both the computer and the phone were synced, but he doesn't disagree that it could have been logged in on both. Is it possible someone could access the account from the computer at the PA's office? He says, I guess it's possible. About the images, you can't say where those photos were taken. No, he can't. To say they were taken in August, we can't really say that. No. Can't say for sure the text was deleted. No. There was a jury question. If someone airdrops pictures, would you know if they're from an airdrop? And if so, can you tell who did the airdrop? The witness doesn't have a lot of experience with airdrop. He does point out one phone is Apple, one phone is Android. So it's unlikely there was an airdrop. It's not compatible doing that between different devices that aren't Apple. Closings on Monday and then deliberations. I think we have a verdict Monday. Easy. I just think when they first get back there, they're gonna be like, "Holy moly, can you guys believe what we just sat through for 2 weeks?" I'd love to be a fly on the wall. If you're not signed up for notifications on my YouTube, I will likely do a very quick YouTube short when that verdict comes down. So make sure if you wanna know when it comes in and what it is, you have those alerts enabled so you don't miss it. I'll also put it out on all my social media channels. All those links are in the description if you need them. That's it for today. Hope you guys have an amazing weekend. We will see you Monday.